So today we have an enclosed trailer that we've done quite a bit of other work on, but one of the last things is going to be swapping out our wheels and tires. I've swapped out 3 of them so far, and I left this last one so that way we can get a good look at it and kind of go over some points to maybe keep an eye on and what you should be looking for in terms of wear, and then how would you figure out what a replacement's going to be and what's going to be the right fit for your specific setup. So starting off, if I'm just replacing the tire itself, the first thing I want to look at is my tire size so I can make sure I'm getting the correct one. Now with the way the wheel's rolled right now, our tire size is sitting right here on our sidewell all the way down at the bottom, and that's going to say ST225-75R15. Now that 225 is going to be our width in millimeters, so that's how wide the tire actually is itself, and then the dash and 75 is going to be a percentage. So 75% of 225 is our height for our sidewall here. So if you wanted to figure that measurement out, you just take 225 millimeters times 75%, and that will give you that height. Following that, we've got R15. So R15 is going to be our actual wheel size. So we have a 15-inch wheel here. So anytime we're wanting to look over at a new tire, we want to make sure that we are matching that size, or if we are going with a different sizing to make sure that it's still going to fit that wheel, because there are a variety of different sizes that will fit the wheel. But then there's going to be a couple other factors, one of them being your load range. So that's your actual carrying capacity with the tire, and the other one's going to be your speed rating, so how fast you can actually travel with these tires. Now our load range, typically it's kind of just at the end of your tire size. On this one, it was in a different spot. It was sitting off just down below over here, and it tells us it's a load range E. So these are going to run in a numeric or alphabetical order in terms of these letters here, and the higher the letter you get is going to be the higher the capacity. So an E is going to be a much higher capacity than, say, a letter A. So from there, we also have our speed rating, which sometimes that gets hidden in here. You don't always get the actual letter because that's also going by a letter. This one just says right on it, speed rating up to 81 miles per hour. So we know we can travel up to 81 miles per hour without damaging our tire. And what essentially that means is how well this tire is going to dissipate heat, because heat is the #1 enemy of our tires. And that's both from actually spinning the wheel and the hub generating heat, the tires generating heat against the pavement, and then also just the UV damage that you can get on the sidewall of your tire or up on the tread just from sitting out in the sun over time. Now once you have all that info off of your old tire, you can easily just use our fit guide to find a matching replacement. Sometimes, well, I should say a lot more than sometimes, we get a lot of questions where people want to go up in load range so that they can get a little bit more capacity. Now that does not mean that your trailer can now all of a sudden haul more weight. Essentially that just means that your tires are going to be stiffer, which is good in some cases depending on what your actual intended use is with that trailer. So like a dump trailer, something where you're hauling a lot of heavy loads in it. The higher that capacity, the stiffer it's going to be, the better it's going to handle all of that added weight. But there is a fine line where that capacity can get to be a bit too much, and then what's going to happen is you're going to have uneven tire wear because the tread isn't going to fully compress down like it should under the weight, and then you can get a lot more wear in the center of your tire. On higher capacity tires, you're also going to have a little bit bumpier of a ride, because if it is at that higher capacity, a little bit over what you're really hauling behind you, you'll start to have the tires kind of bounce behind you, and the trailer is going to want to bounce as well. So there is a gray area there where you can go a little bit out of your range, a little bit over it, but if you go too far over it, it can actually give you an adverse effect as well. If you're planning on replacing both the wheel and the tire at the same time, then you're also going to want to make sure that you get your wheel bolt pattern. Now there are tools like this little ring right here, which you can easily just place up against your studs and then figure out exactly what that pattern is. Now unfortunately I can't use this today just because the hub bore hole here is just so huge, it's not going to fit through that ring, unfortunately. But luckily you can easily measure with your tape measure as well. Now the way you do so is going to change depending on the amount of studs you have. So if you have an odd number, it's going to be different than an even. With even, it's pretty simple. You're just going to want to measure from center to center of those studs. So looking at this, it looks like it's right around 6 on 5.5, going from center to center here. Now if this was a odd number, say we have 5 lugs instead, we'd go from the center of one bolt hole across to the outer edge of the other one. And I can go grab a odd lugged wheel too, so that we can get a little bit better representation of that. Over on our other trailer we have in here, I'm just looking at the spare here. We got a 5 lug bolt pattern. All we're doing is going from the center of one bolt hole across to the outer edge, which right here shows me that we've got a 5 on 4.5 bolt pattern. So from there, we can then pick out the correct wheel to go along with our trailer. Once you have figured out your tire size, your load range, your speed rating, and then also figured out the wheel size, the bolt pattern, then you can then finally figure out exactly which replacement is going to be the right fit. And for ours today, that's going to be the Kenda Karrier KR53 tire, along with our silver mod wheel, which is going to match what they previously had. Now the mod wheel is like your base level in terms of looks, and typically is going to be a little bit lower on that pricing chart. So this is what you'll see with most enclosed trailers, utility trailers, stuff like that, where it's mostly used for work. But with all that said, why don't we actually show you how to replace this? So first thing we're going to do, I'm going to set my tire to the side here. We're going to get some jack stands, and we're going to lift up our trailer because we want to allow our wheel to actually be able to spin here so we can actually get it off of our hub. Our wheel can freely spin. Now say you don't have an impact, you might want to just break each one of those lug nuts free while it's still on the ground, so that way the wheel isn't trying to spin on you and you're trying to fight that off with the wrench as well. I have an impact today, so it's a little bit easier for me. I'm going to just take it off right now. And we can set our lug nuts to the side. Just pull our wheel right on off. And we can set that to the side as well. One thing I prefer to do is just put one of the studs all the way at the top, so I know I need to hold my wheel just like that, and I can line it right up. Slip on my wheel, and then we're going to hand thread on our lug nuts to start and make sure that we're not cross threading them. A lot of people use an impact at this point, and then they'll cross thread or just tear up all the beginning threads on the studs, especially if they're using an air impact. So I try to always get it on started first, make sure it's not sticking before we go ahead and use any tools. So at this point, we're now going to lower our trailer back down, so that way I have some friction with the wheel against the floor as we torque down our lug nuts. When torquing your lug nuts, make sure that you are still following that star pattern. And then what I do once I get through each one of them is just one more time, go and check the torque on each lug nut, make sure that nothing kind of loosened up by a different one getting tightened down. All right, all good. Now from here, our next step is to make sure that we check the PSI level inside of our tire. Now this carrying capacity is absolutely based on the PSI. So with this having a 2,860 pound capacity, that's only achieved if we have this aired up to 80 PSI. If we are below that 80 PSI, our capacity is now diminished and it's at an unknown number because they don't actually figure out all the math to explain exactly which PSI level is going to give you which capacity. So always make sure that you have these at 80 PSI. That is going to be your cold pressure temperature that it'll even say on here for you. And that means that before you even took off, you had this at 80 PSI, because as you start rolling, you're going to generate heat with the friction on our tread and with the hub itself. So the tires are going to heat up quite a bit, but we want to make sure that we're not getting too high with that heat there. All right, now I've got my air chuck. We'll double check our PSI. We're sitting at 66, 70, there we go. 80.2, 80.1, and stop. We're good. So that's going to give us our full capacity here, and it's going to make sure that the tire is fully aired up, so that way when we are under load, we should be getting even contact across our treads there, so that way we're not getting uneven wear on our tires. So now we have our first tire aired up. I'm going to go around to the rest of them that I've already replaced, and I'm going to make sure that those are all properly aired up as well to the correct PSI. And then once we get through that, we can then talk a little bit more, take a little bit closer look at our tire here, because there are some differences between the different types of tires, whether you have a radial or bias. Now our Karrier KR53 is going to be a radial tire. And radial tires are going to be what you'll see on your vehicle as well. So bias was the original design, and it eventually swapped over to radial because radial offers a lot more comfort, it's better heat dispersion, and then on top of that you're going to have a smoother ride here. So bias is essentially there for your heavy duty kind of loading. They're strong sidewalls, they're really made to actually carry a real heavy load versus our radials where it's a little bit softer of a sidewall and it's more so there for comfort and fuel efficiency. For routine maintenance, what you're going to want to be looking for here is any kind of odd wear marks on your tread just in general. Typically if you've got a bunch of random cupping all over it, that's definitely a sign that we have some issues. A lot of the time it can be related to your suspension. Could be that you're overloading the trailer, you're underloading the trailer. There's a lot of different variables that will end up playing a factor in how your tire tread is actually going to wear. Now, say you have 0 of those issues and you're just having your normal wear down, what you're looking for is there's little lines that are kind of indented up on our tread well here. So you can see these little wear marks in here inside of our tread. That's what we're looking for just our normal wear and tear as it goes through. This one probably isn't going to hit that normal wear and tear. This trailer isn't used as much, but it does sit around a lot, so there's a lot of dry rot starting to happen. You can see a lot of cracking in the surface here. I had one spot on this tire that was pretty good to show that too. Let me find that real quick. Right here, you can see it's starting to split on the tread. So eventually that is going to wear, and then we could have a situation where the tire just blows out and we're on the road, and now we got a much bigger issue to deal with. So kind of catching this stuff before you go out on your trip and dealing with it right then can make or break your trip for you. So here at eTrailer, we also offer a variety of different accessories that can help maintain and safeguard your wheels and tires. The first one is going to be our tire covers, which are just going to help protect it from any kind of UV rays. They're just going to be beating down on it and wearing out and giving you that dry rot you see all over the sidewall of your tires. One of the brands I usually prefer is Snap Ring. They have a really easy to use system where it just has a ring that kind of pulls open really easily. You can pop it right on your tire, close it back up, and it grips onto the back of the tire and holds onto it so that way it's not going to blow away on you. So you don't have to get down below the trailer, crawl under there and hook on any kind of strap. It's just one and done, just easily put on. Definitely prefer those myself. Along with that, there's also going to be a TPMS sensor that you can pick up. So there's a bunch of different options when it comes to that. For the most part, what you're looking for is the amount of wheels that you're wanting, and then there's options of whether you want just pressure sensor, so your PSI levels, and then also there is ones that have a heat or a temperature sensor in them as well, because as your wheel is spinning and making friction with the ground, it's going to start heating up. Same thing with your hub. As all that heat builds up, and can get to an unsafe level eventually for your tire. So TPMS sensor is going to alert you well before you get to that point, so that way you can pull over and figure out what the issue is and solve it before you have a blowout and then you have a big safety issue while you're out on the highway. One other thing that you can also pick up as well, and it's not as important with a trailer, but it can help, is Counteract. They offer some balancing beads, which you would fill in through your valve stem here. You would just use their tool, pop out the core in the valve stem, fill it in with the beads that they give you, and then pop it back in, air it back up, and you're all ready to go. Those beads will just spin around inside, find the center, and then that will help balance the tires as you are rolling around. One other thing that can throw up your tires is going to be your suspension. So if you have an axle that isn't being fully loaded enough, you can have uneven wear on one side of the tire versus the other. And then when it's overloaded, you're going to get the exact opposite effect. It's going to be on the other side of the tire. So what happens is with the axle unloaded, your tires kind of angle outwards at the top. And then once that weight is added to the axle, it kind of bends them back in and straightens them out. But if we go a little bit too far, we bend the axle down, then we're going to start having the outside at the bottom start to kind of kick out more, and that's where you're going to get that uneven tire wear. So making sure that your axle tube isn't being overloaded, it's properly loaded up, you don't have it bent, and then just coming over, giving your suspension a once over, making sure that that is all in good shape is going to make sure that your wheels and tires last a whole lot longer. Well, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the Kenda Karrier KR53 tire along with the silver mod wheel here on our enclosed trailer. My name's Kevin, and if you still have some questions about what's going to be the right tire size, or you're just needing some help picking out those replacement wheels for your trailer, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.